Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have about a minute until we get started, but I appreciate you waiting and we're excited for today's presentation. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and on behalf of the Environmental Finance Center Network, welcome to our webinar today on strengthening the water sector workforce in Kentucky, GRADD's Hire to Operate H2O program. My name is Avery Davis from the Syracuse University Environmental Finance Center. And before we begin, we're going to cover a few housekeeping items and then we'll get started. During the webinar today, everyone will be kept on mute to ensure audio quality. If you have a question, please type it into the GoToWebinar question dialog box anytime throughout the session. We'll be saving your questions for a facilitated Q&A session at the end of the presentation. After the webinar, you will all receive a follow-up email that includes a link to the recording and other information you may need. You can also download the slides from today in the Handouts tab in your GoToWebinar control panel. This webinar has not been submitted for pre-approval of continuing education credits, but eligible attendees will receive a certificate of attendance for their personal record. To receive a certificate for this session, you must attend for the entire webinar and register and attend individually using your real name and unique email. Certificates will be sent via email within 30 days of the webinar date, and if you have any questions or need assistance, please contact us at smallsystems@syr.edu. So now for a little bit about the Environmental Finance Center Network. We provide training and technical assistance to small water and wastewater systems in all U.S. states and territories through our building technical, managerial, and financial capacity programs. If your community or utility needs assistance with drinking water or wastewater system management, please feel free to contact us through our request form, which I will be sharing shortly in the chat. And on that note, I would like to introduce our presenters for today. So joining me is Brett Schwartz, who's the Associate Director of the National Association of Development Organizations Research Foundation. Also joining me today is Paula Payne, who is the Workforce Development Coordinator at the Green River Area Development District, as well as Joanna Shake, the Executive Director, also from the Green River Area Development District, Heather Stevenson, the Workforce Development Coordinator from the Kentucky Rural Water Association, and Pete Conrad, the Superintendent at the Henderson County Water District. So welcome everyone, and we can get started.
All right, well, thank you so much for the introduction, Avery. Really appreciate it. And hi, everyone. Again, I'm Brett Schwartz, an Associate Director at the NATO Research Foundation. Welcome to today's webinar, Strengthening the Water Sector Workforce in Kentucky, Green River Area Development District's Hire to Operate program. So with the NATO Research Foundation, we've really valued our partnership over the years with the Environmental Finance Center Network in delivering trainings for small water systems. And through webinars and case studies, we've been able to feature the work of our member organizations and their partners and how they support local and regional water systems in a variety of ways. In today's webinar, we'll do just that. You'll hear about a really innovative and impactful workforce development program underway in Kentucky that is certainly replicable in regions across the country. So I'm very much just the warm-up act for today's presenters, but just briefly wanted to give a little bit of background about our organization and our members who make up our association. So next slide, please. So the National Association of Development Organizations is a membership association of regional development organizations all across the country that support regions around economic and community development initiatives. I work with the NATO Research Foundation, which is the nonprofit research arm of NATO, which provides trainings, workshops, networking opportunities, and much more to the national network of regional development organizations. I can learn much more about our organization at nato.org at the bottom. Next slide. And so just to clarify some terms here, we use this term regional development organization to describe this national network of multi-jurisdictional planning and economic development entities. And they go by different names depending on where you are in the country. So councils of governments, regional councils, economic development districts, local development districts, and as you'll hear about today, area development districts or ADDs. But no matter what these organizations are called in your state, they all play a really invaluable role in fostering intergovernmental partnerships and relationships at the local, regional, state, and federal level. The next slide. So regional development organizations, they work in many sectors, but if I had to really sum up their missions in a nutshell, it's really to make their communities and regions much more resilient. And we've embraced this really broad and inclusive definition of resilience as the ability of a region or community to anticipate, withstand, and bounce back from any type of shock, disruption, or stress that it may experience. So you can see some of the bullets here at the bottom. Of course, these are the impacts of weather-related disasters and hazards and the impacts of climate change, but also the impacts of changing economies and industries, the closure of a large employer, the loss of a military base, the decline of an important industry. So no matter what sort of kind of shock or disruption or stress, resilient regions are able to be prepared and ready to build back better in a lot of ways. And that's really at the heart, I think, of the missions of regional development organizations. So next slide. So before I introduce our speakers, I just want to briefly share some of the many ways that RDOs support their regional water systems. And this work is often behind the scenes and out of the limelight and includes facilitating access to funding, data collection and mapping, supporting regionalization, and promoting broader economic development. So the most common way RDOs support local water systems is by helping counties and municipalities access funding through grant writing, through providing administrative assistance and leading capacity building efforts. So RDO staff can pursue funding from a mix of sources and provide guidance and oversight from initial grant preparation all the way through final project closeout. So in addition to various state-specific funding streams, popular federal sources include US EPA drinking water revolving state funds, HUD CDBG, USDA Rural Development, EDA Public Works, and grants from federal state commissions such as the Appalachian Regional Commission and the Delta Regional Authority, which we'll be hearing more about today. Now, RDOs also serve as repositories for data, statistics, and other key information from the regions that they serve. And this can include information about demographics, economic development, land use, watershed, commuter flows, and much more. And this knowledge can help support towns and cities in making informed decisions about infrastructure planning and pursuing future investments. Now, given the broad scope of work and array of partners, RDOs also bring a regional focus to emphasizing water systems planning and infrastructure. And with their emphasis on collaboration, RDOs can initiate projects and improvements that promote efficiency, keep costs down for consumers, improve water quality, and break down barriers between municipalities in pursuit of funding opportunities. And finally, we all know that without well-functioning and cost-effective utilities, economic development opportunities and business expansion prospects are severely limited for towns and cities. So water systems infrastructure and upgrades are therefore often part of a larger economic development project supported by regional development organizations and their partners. So this can include localized site-specific projects as well as much larger regional efforts to support industry clusters. And then one key area not listed here on the slide, but we're going to hear much more about today, is promoting workforce development and professional training to local utilities and water districts. So much more on that in just a moment. So next slide. So please get in touch afterwards if you have any specific questions about the work of regional development organizations, our work here at NATO in general, or the NATO Research Foundation. So if you're already working, or if you're not already working with your regional development organization, I hope after this webinar, you'll really understand the value in partnering with these organizations. If you're unsure which RDOs serve your region, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to make an introduction and show you the possibilities and resources that are available. So next slide. Great, so that's really wrapping things up from me. As I said, I'm really just the warm-up act for this really fantastic panel of presenters that will be sharing much more about this really exciting workforce development and apprenticeship opportunity in Kentucky. As Avery mentioned, we have Paula Payne, who's the Workforce Development Coordinator at the Green River Area Development District, joining us, as well as Pete Conrad, the Superintendent of the Henderson County Water District. And we'll also be hearing from Heather Stevenson, who is the Workforce Development Coordinator at the Kentucky Rural Water Association. And I believe Joanna Shake might also be joining us. She's the Executive Director at the Green River Ad as well. So Joanna might be joining us throughout the conversation as well. So with that, I will bow out from here. I want to turn it over to this great panel to kind of walk you through this project, its origins, what it's all about, and what the future holds, and really hope that it can inspire your local work as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paula, Pete, and Heather for the presentation. So thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Brett. This is Pete. I'm with Henderson County Water District. So I'm going to start this off a little bit different. I always like to kind of do a little bit of thing where we just talk about everybody. Now, obviously, everyone knows about all the flooding and whatnot that happened in Eastern Kentucky, and that's not actually where we're at. Back in December of 2021, there was a series of tornadoes that hit Kentucky, and that's where we're at. So we're about 7-8 hours away from all that flooding goes. And this part here always works better when I'm in a room and I can see everyone and everyone can see each other. So in a webinar, we'll see how this works. But the one thing I'd always ask everyone is, how many of you all that are on this call, and I know there's going to be a couple of y'all in this case, wake up in the morning and you're thinking about water or sewer, or 2 o'clock in the morning you get a phone call or an email and you're taking that call. Generally speaking, that's not a lot of folks. But at the same time, how many of you all get up in the morning, you use a toilet, you use the bathrooms, you're taking a shower, you're making some coffee, you get a glass of water? Most everybody raises their hand then. That's because of folks like myself. There's folks all around this whole state and around every one of the communities that you all live in. Nobody looks at us, nobody ever thinks about us until you turn on that faucet or try getting a glass of water. Until that time, you're generally not thinking about us folks. And it's okay, we're all right with it. Before I started working in this kind of work, I was in the exact same boat. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It is what it is. You've got water, you don't think about it until you don't have it. So if you want to pop to the next slide. All right, so this project here, the How to Operate H2O program is a collaboration, obviously, between federal, state, local partners to address the shortfall of certified water and wastewater operators over here in West Kentucky, and it's specifically in the GRADD region, it covers 7 counties over here. We work through the Registered Apprenticeship Program that Heather will be able to talk about, that is going through Kentucky Rural Water Association. The program works to address a highly specified workforce because, let's be honest, if you're working in a water plant or a sewer plant, or you're working in the water distribution or sewer distribution collection systems, those skills don't necessarily equate back out to other jobs. I mean, if you're working in an office, working on a computer, working Excel sheets, you're not going to know how to fix water leak. It just is what it is. So again, we're kind of different, and the folks that do it, God bless them. I've got a handful of them. I love them to pieces. I work with them. These are folks that, to put it honestly, college waved goodbye to them a long time ago. Some of them, not all of them. Some guys love doing this, but these are guys that they don't want to work indoors. They're going to be the kind of folks that you go into a grocery store or something like that, and sometimes you'll shy away from them because some of these folks are rough, but they do rough work. They're going to be covered in mud 99% of the time. It's part of the job. So, and this here project that we worked with the GRADD office can easily be replicated in other regions of Kentucky or across the nation in conjunction with the Registered Apprenticeship Program. So if you want to pop to the next slide for Paula.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit of background information about GRADD. GRADD is the Green River Area Development District. We are a regional planning agency and council of governments. We serve the communities of Davis, Hancock, Henderson, McLean, Ohio, Union, and Webster counties. We are in the western part of the state. And we partner with state and federal entities to fund and implement projects and programs that have been identified at the local level to improve the quality of life of residents. So at any given time, GRADD has Many projects going on, from improving roads and fire stations with this particular project, to try to build the workforce for water and wastewater utilities. So we have a multitude of things going on. The next slide.
All right, thanks, Paul. So this one here, obviously, availability of labor is an all-time low here in Kentucky. Median age of the water utility folks is 55 years old, with just shy, a little over half of the operators are, as of numbers, I believe are from last year, are eligible to retire in the next 2 to 5 years, myself included. As of Wednesday last week, I was able to hire 2 new folks on, so I now have a workforce of 10. With 2 folks that, have a whopping 72 hours on them. I've got 3 ladies up front that do all my billing and things like that. We cover an area of approximately 475 square miles with 375 miles of water line, have 6,500 customers. I've got 1 that can retire here in about 2 months. You can't replace 27 years worth of intelligence in 5 minutes. It just doesn't happen. So some of the other barriers that we've got is the inability to fund apprentices or just new employees, and to pay competitive wages. I mean, I serve under a board of 5 folks. We also underneath, a couple different governmental entities, including the Public Service Commission. They tell us that we're paying too much. I was able to get my base pay up to $14 an hour. We've got one of the largest economic developments in this, I believe it's in the largest one in Kentucky's history, which is Pratt Paper. It's a recycling plant coming into town, and people are trying to compete with them at $23 an hour. I can't pay that. It just isn't a possibility. I mean, I have folks that have been working here for, like I said, 25 years, and they're barely making that now. So we've also got plenty of retired operators returning to the workforce to industry to fill needs. And as every year goes by, folks are getting older, closer to retirement, things like that. One of the things that, and Heather, I haven't brought this up with you, but I know we talked about it with a couple other folks. Part of the thing that you're looking at is the Clean Water and the Drinking Water Acts were put in place in the 70s, which is close to about 50 years ago now. Here, at least in the state of Kentucky, in Tier 1 and Tier 2, the retirement criteria was to have 27 years of service. That's 52 years. We're hitting on that cusp right now. We're on the end of the second cycle of the retirements and whatnot. So I think that's where part of our other issues come in, amongst other factors and whatnot. So if you want to go ahead and pop to the next slide. Again, on November 1st, 2019, there was revised regulations governing drinking water and wastewater, and those come down all the time. But this one here was in case of operator certifications, became effectively and jointly implemented by the Division of Water and DCA, which is the folks that do our licensing. Unlike plumbers that work at your house, we license through DCA. So we're actually not licensed plumbers, in the water and wastewater side. So, well, Fairmake's formerly in place worked for many years. The challenge facing the industry is necessary, make it necessary for those 2 agencies to review and analyze regulations to determine needed changes. That regulatory package was developed with input from stakeholders, which is basically, all the water and wastewater operators, things like that, and help addressing operator shortages. And then high standards, because I mean, at any one time, regardless of how many folks any one water district or sewer district has got, we're always making sure that we're putting out a good, clean product. In my case, we're making sure that we've got good, clean drinking water. In the sewer side, they're making sure that anything that's sitting outfalls is not going to be contaminating the environment, things like that. So changes made include an acceptance of a state-approved apprenticeship program, which, again, we'll talk about a little bit later. So if we want to pop to the next one for Paula there. Ms. Paula?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had to turn my microphone on.
Okay.
So to address the need for more certified operators in Kentucky, the Kentucky Rural Water Association established a Registered Apprenticeship Program with the U.S. Department of Labor in 2019. And I can tell you, in doing the H2O project, working with Heather through KRWA was absolutely the most beneficial thing that she was able, with her knowledge, to take care of so many things that we really didn't know about. So we were able to apply and get the grant. And then Heather, I'm going to let you talk about that RAP and what that meant to us.
Sure. Thank you, Paula. So first off, I just want to talk a little bit. Again, my name is Heather Stevenson, and I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator for Kentucky Rural Water Association. And I just want to hit on what apprenticeship is in general. So, of course, it's a training model that's been around for centuries, but it's essentially combining on-the-job training with related technical instruction. So, we pair apprentices with a mentor that they are learning from on the job, and they are taking supplemental coursework that is relatable to what they're learning on the job, and that can be practically applied. So the structure of it is we systematically increase an apprentice's wages as their skill levels increase. It's considered a high quality career pathway, and it's an opportunity for utilities to grow their own. And it's considered the other degree. Pete had indicated, college isn't for everybody. Even for those, we actually have apprentices that have college degrees, but they found opportunities in the water industry. And the thing about this job is, no matter how much education you have, on-the-job training is where you're going to get your most practical experience, and our state primacy agency, of course, requires it. And so, we consider the apprenticeship model superior to traditional on-the-job training because it is supplementing the experience with structured educational goals. And, in Kentucky especially, we talk about, once operators get certified, they are required to obtain so many continuing education units each year, the CEUs. But we really have to look at, if they're getting continuing education units, what are they continuing from? What kind of foundational education do they have to build on? So this is something that the apprenticeship program really, it's what makes it superior to just the traditional on-the-job training. The students are receiving their mentorship, people who have careers worth of instructional knowledge, oftentimes at, that one utility. And also, of course, their progress is being tracked and benchmarked. The combination of experience coupled with the curriculum can help accelerate that apprentice to fill operator positions. And it's a way to create and keep operators in the pipeline to help address the aging workforce. The fact that our program is what Paula said, a RAP, a Registered Apprenticeship Program, just means that we have been validated by the U.S. Department of Labor. Our program meets national quality standards. Our apprentices earn a nationally recognized credential. And it also allows, being a registered apprenticeship program allows access to additional resources, including funding. And, it's something that the writing's been on the wall for years. We've seen this concentrated retirement bubble coming. There's no secret that we are facing an aging workforce not just in Kentucky, but nationwide. And not only that, but economic development is something that we are really focused on in Kentucky, even in our most rural communities. We want to see growth, and with that, the growing population puts an increased demand on that infrastructure. So, as well as the fact that advancements in water treatment and wastewater treatment supply and technology changes and advances every day. And so, to keep up with that, this has been our answer to help train the next generation of skilled workers, and not only that, but to standardize the level of training for those new employees. And this isn't something that Kentucky Rural Water came up with, obviously. We are an affiliate of National Rural Water Association. And this is something that NRWA really took on and started the process of developing national standards back in 2016. So we call it, the Rural Water Apprenticeship Network. So NRWA had gotten these standards approved with the U.S. Department of Labor, and then individual state associations were able to adapt those guidelines with their state apprenticeship agencies. And so that's what we have been able to do in Kentucky. We have been able to, we work with Kentucky Apprenticeship. We got our standards approved by our state agency, and that allows us to be the sponsor of the apprenticeship program, and we administer all aspects of the program. So what that does for our participating utilities is that means that they don't have to create their own apprenticeship. They don't have to, cut through the red tape of developing their very own, apprenticeship program. They don't have to worry about the administration of it. That is something that KRWA handles as the program sponsor, and utilities are able to just come in under our umbrella, and they sign in a participating employer agreement that says that they will, they agree to employ the apprentice, to pay their wages, to allow them access to the related technical instruction, and to provide a qualified mentor to the apprentice. And then as far as any other administrative requirements, it's utilities and mentors are asked to provide feedback, one in the form of evaluations of the apprentice to see how they're progressing, and then as well as backup documentation for on-the-job training hours that have been documented. And that is up to the apprentice to document their on-the-job training. We track those through 5 different categories, and it's in their interest to do that. So we put the ball in their court. If they want to advance in their apprenticeship program and earn their systematic wages, then they will, they'll track their progress. Kentucky Rural Water, this is something that it really just kind of fit into our wheelhouse anyway. So when the opportunity arose for us to adapt state apprenticeship standards, we were really excited about it, because for over 40 years, we have been representing water and wastewater systems. We have provided classroom CEU training for certified operators. We provide on-site technical assistance. We have management resources and tools that are available to utilities. So with that experience and with the credibility that we have with our utilities, it has proven very successful in Kentucky to use this as a training model. And I'll say that I know that I'm speaking with people from various states. I'd encourage you to see what the status of your Rural Water Association apprenticeship program is, because as of now, there are 34 states with active apprenticeship programs, and there are several more that are in the works. So in terms of what our program is, we have a 2-year program, and we offer it in water systems and wastewater systems operations specialist. It's time-based. It takes approximately 2 years to complete the program, And the requirement is 4,000 hours of on-the-job training with supplemented with 288 hours of related technical instruction. National Rural Water has invested quite a bit in the success of the apprenticeship program. One thing that we can provide is the ability for apprentices to track their on-the-job training in an online tracking system, and even through an app that they can download on their phone. So I think that's a summary of our program and our offerings, and I will pass it back to Pete.
I think actually I'm going to go next. If you'll go to the next slide, please. As far as the H2O project, systems in the Green River area struggle to attract apprentices to the Kentucky Rural Water Association Apprenticeship Program. As we've talked about a little before, cost was identified as a barrier to enrollment. And so GRADD was able to work with local leaders to secure a $150,000 Delta Workforce Program grant through the DRA, or the Delta Regional Authority. 4 of the 7 counties that GRADD serves are in that Delta region. And we created this Hire to Operate program. The goal of the program is to reduce cost barriers to enrollment in that KRWA apprenticeship program, and to ultimately address the shortage of certified water and wastewater operators in those DRA counties. We were able to, if you want to go on to the next slide, we were able to pay for 10 apprentices across 7 different utilities. We paid up to $12,000 in wages for OJT training, and we paid for over 200 hours of related technical instruction. Those were with the DRA funds that we were able to get. The apprenticeship program creates a pipeline of highly qualified operators for the rural utilities and stable quality careers for new entrants to the workforce, dislocated workers, and incumbent workers at a minimal cost to the apprentices in the utilities. So in helping pay those wages and in paying for the RTI for the apprentices to get their certifications, we were able to take that burden off of the utility just a little bit. Obviously, some of the larger counties are able to better support those things, but many of our small rural utilities just don't have the budget to add things like that. So it's been a great help to them. So GRADD has provided grant administration and oversight, as well as outreach and recruitment for the program. So we've worked pretty closely with those 7 utilities. Of the 10 apprentices that started, we have retained 8 of them. 3 of them have already attained their certification, and the other 5 are set to do that within the next couple of months. So we're getting very close to completing the project. Pete, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Paul. I think if you want to go ahead and pop to the next slide, I think you pretty much covered most of the next slide for me, Paul.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I'll add a piece in there, though. I mean, you know, and maybe I should have disclosed this before, but myself and Heather both actually came from area development districts in the past. I actually worked in the GRADD office for almost 5 years before I came here to the Henderson County Water District. And Heather came from, I don't remember which ad. I'm sorry, Heather. But again, this here photo, I know Heather and Paul are both pretty proud of. These are folks that are actually there. These are the apprentices that we've got out there. But I also like to point out, you know, out of those 7 systems that are working with them, you know, 5 of them are cities and two of them, one's a water district and one of them's a regional water commission, which is they basically run a water plant for the county and sell off to cities and stuff like that. But again, a lot of these ones, like they're saying, where they're having a difficult time, or money can be a bit of a stumbling block, for getting folks into these programs. A lot of these are small cities with their class ones, maybe a class two. I can't remember which ones are which for 100%. But I mean, these are places with connections of 200 to 500 connections. So I mean, they're not serving tens of thousands of people. These are places, small little communities with less than 1,000, 1,500 people kind of thing being covered by some of these places. So Kentucky Rural Water has been a huge resource. At least, I can say that personally, because they've helped us out. We're a class 3 system, so we're pretty big. But even then, they're a great set of folks. I can't say how every rural water system, in every state is, but from what I know of them, that, they're a great resource to tap into and link up with for sure. Absolutely. They have to be, even if they're half of what they're like here, they're going to be absolutely awesome to work with. So if you want to pop over to the last slide, let Paula finish up.
So this, the picture is of one of our operators who received his Class 2 certified water operator. And it's just great to see that hands-on that he's getting with his mentor beside him. Those things are just so important to those small communities, like Pete said. So in December of 2022, the Delta Workforce Program released a request for proposal to solicit applications for grants targeted toward creating a more vibrant economic future for areas in the Delta region. So I'm excited to say that we will be applying for up to $450,000 to continue this project in the 4 counties that are covered in the DRA. Obviously, that's a lot more money than before. So right now, the survey is out to our utilities for them to provide us with some information about what their need would be as far as apprentices. We're hoping to be able to serve more apprentices this time, more utilities, obviously, but mainly we hope to take even more financial burden from that utility by providing additional money and wages. So we hope to continue creating a pipeline of highly qualified operators for rural utilities and stable quality careers for new entrants into the workforce, dislocated workers and incumbent workers. And I do want to say that a couple of the apprentices that we have now are incumbent workers. Well, I say actually one of them is a female, but those utilities were so thankful to be able to have those classes paid for so that they could get their certification. That's something that may not have happened without the grant. So we're very pleased to help with that. Joanna, are you still on?
I am. Good morning, good afternoon.
I'd like to introduce Joanna Shake, the Executive Director of GRADD, and let her talk a little bit, probably especially about what the DRA funds have helped at GRADD with.
Yes, thank you. As a member of the DRA, they're a critical partner in funding quite a few of our projects. And I know that a lot of folks on the call probably aren't in the region, but it's very similar. A little history of DRA is very similar to the Appalachian Regional Commission, ARC, Denali, just, oh my gosh, it escapes me there. I know there are quite a few around the country. So I would encourage folks to investigate their commissions, their federal commissions, to see if they're similar workforce funding. If we didn't have the Delta monies, I would surely look to the Economic Development Administration, EDA, dollars as well. I mean, this is a project. Paula and Heather, thank you so much. You all have done a huge service, not only to the gals and guys who are securing great jobs, but to the communities who are so desperate to keep their water system safe. But yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment. But that's the couple of things that I just wanted to impart and stress to folks. Welcome any questions.
Thanks, Joanna. That's really all that I have. Pete or Heather, have you thought of anything you'd like to add?
This is Pete again. I mean, it's like I said. I mean, haven't been on the side that a lot of these folks are on. Being on the flip side now. Coming from an area development district, it's interesting to see. It's a great program. I've been a huge supporter of it since day one. I'm the chairman of what they call our water management council there, which is where our 58 water and sewer plant operators meet. I try to work a lot with rural water. I mean, this is an issue that we've been talking about for 10 years. We'll probably be talking about it for 10, 15 years from now, hopefully. Hopefully a lot less than we are right now. But I mean, with programs like this, I mean, we're going to do nothing but make our workforce stronger and better and even more professional than it is now. I know one of the things that Heather's done a great job of is that, we all do OJT. Every water system does, because even here locally, we serve the county. There's a different water system. It's a city that serves inside the city. We're doing the same kind of work, but taking one of my employees and plug them into the city and taking a city employee and plug them into county, it's hard to do because we do things so wildly different. Here in Western Kentucky, we're generally speaking flat. You go over to Eastern Kentucky and everybody's hilly. Their systems are wildly different. When I tell someone I've got 7 pump stations, 7 tanks, they look at me incredulous. But I've also got a 500,000 tank. You talk to these guys and their biggest tank might be 100,000 gallons and they might have 45 pump stations and they're tiny little ones to pump up a hill, and they have pressure reducing valves to slow down the pressure going down the hillside and things like that. So, they've done a great job, rural water has, and Heather in particular, of trying to find a way to kind of teach everyone the same, but then give them the ability to go and get OJT at their home system to say, okay, we do all this X, Y, and Z. Everyone does this, but this is the extra pieces we have to do at our system to make where we live work for our customers and the folks in our areas. So that's all I've got.
I will add, this is Heather again. I'll just kind of build on what Pete said. So we have, through standardizing the training, an important thing that anyone who's training to be an operator needs to know is, to become certified, when they go to sit for that state licensing exam, they're not just taking a test over their system, whether it's, treatment, distribution, collections. They're not just taking a licensure exam over their system. That's why it's important to introduce the apprentices, to a more well-rounded approach to the training, because they're actually training they're testing on multiple treatment processes and that sort of thing. So we do try to build that into the program. And something else, the partnership that we forged with GRADD has really been invaluable, and I can't stress that enough. And for systems and small systems, if they're needing to hire a certified operator, or they're needing to have a responsible operator in charge. Well, in our state, you can't even become a certified operator with no less than a year of on-the-job training. So if you have a system that's waited till the last minute, they've got someone retiring within the next 6 months, they're already behind the 8 ball. And the chances of finding an operator that's already certified is slim, because there's just not as many out there. But the other thing is, if you do find a certified operator, small systems, you may not be able to afford them. And so the apprenticeship model allows you to bring someone in at a lower wage, at a starting wage, and let them build up. Whereas You know, it's going to be more expensive for a utility to either one, contract with an operator. That's not a sustainable approach, or try to hire in a certified operator that's already experienced, because they know how valuable they are. So this has really been a great way to address that. And the partnership with GRADD and being able to provide funding to these small systems with strained budgets has been the difference maker, because it's these systems that know that they need to hire someone, and ideally they would have someone training with their operator that has all that institutional knowledge, but they just couldn't afford it. And that's where this really played a major role. And so the other thing it's allowed us to do, and one of the things that I love about my job, is it has allowed us to conduct a lot of outreach and recruitment. So, we've been able, even if, I'm not able to recruit a whole room to work in the water industry, if I'm able to tell a whole room of people about the value of their water and the people that provide it, then I consider that a win. So it's allowed us to tell more people about what our professionals in our industry do. So thank you all for this opportunity, and to GRADD, I can't thank you enough for your partnership, and look forward to continuing it on.
Fantastic. Thank you all for presenting with us today. This has been a highly valuable presentation. We do have some questions if you're all ready to dive in to that. So we did get one question in the registration process actually about this. So one person noted, there's a general deficit in people available and willing to work in municipal positions, and particularly for water systems. Sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. So could Pete, would you mind muting real fast? Perfect, thank you. So for this question, they asked, what can be done to interest younger folks in a career in public service, since it doesn't pay well compared to what they would make in the private sector?
I mean, I can jump in on this one a little bit. Like I said, I got lucky enough that I hired on 2 folks last week. And, again, you could be seeing jobs that might be paying upwards of $10, $12 more an hour. Part of the answer I've got for this one, if we could answer this, or if I could answer this, I don't think any of us would be here in this meeting right now. There doesn't seem to be a real good answer. The one thing I can say, though, is we've been trying to look at different things here. I do a heck of a sales pitch, because, you got industries and factories and things like that where they got points and stuff. And I kind of remind everyone that, hey, we're small. I mean, if you need to take time off, or you need to go do something with your wife or your family or your kids or grandkids, we try to take care of our folks. As I was talking about before, we've had an election, obviously. We've got a new jailer in town. And I've talked with him, and I've talked with Heather, in the past. I do know in the state of Kentucky, there's at least one individual that started their apprenticeship while they were incarcerated. I've actually got one individual that works for me that has a felony, and I've had others in the past that have had felonies. Now, obviously, not every felon's going to match up or be someone that you want to be dealing with the public or money or things like that. We've all got our levels of comfort with that kind of thing, but it might be, we're hitting into a new world kind of thing. Why not try new things? If we as a society, personally, the way I look at it is, if we as a society are saying, hey, these people have done their time, they've spent whatever, time they needed to in jail systems and things like that, let's let them reintegrate into society. Well, if you don't give them a shot, they can't prove that they're going to be a good, productive person in society again. So, I've had some luck with that. Like I said, I've been talking with the jailer about maybe starting an apprenticeship program that way, try to get some education for those folks and get them a good paying job, because let's be honest, I mean, in the last 3 years, we've seen a world that's changed tremendously at times. A lot of places closed down, you know, especially in the first early beginning months of the pandemic to try helping curb things. We never shut down. I don't know of any water or sewer plants anywhere that shut down. We all had to keep working. So this is like I can tell people, it's a recession-proof, you know, gig. You're never not gonna have a job, because at the end of the day, everyone likes to have water and likes to be able to flush a toilet and make it go away. So, but again, in every area, you're gonna have to find different ways. But and Heather can kind of help maybe, because I know she's had some successes in getting folks to come talk to them and stuff. But I mean, here locally, we're just trying to look at different places that we haven't looked at before to try to find folks.
Something that I'll share is, you know, one of the biggest things that I like to emphasize when I'm talking to an employer that's looking to recruit is, don't sit back and wait for them to come through your doors. We have to meet them where they are, especially if we're thinking about a younger generation and trying to entice them. You know, we have to rethink our recruitment strategies. We have to be willing to, I like to say, you know, be proactive. Go out, you know, in your small communities especially. If you go into an establishment and you see someone whose work ethic and customer service stands out to you, tell them about the water industry. Tell them about the wastewater industry. Invite them to your plant. Get involved with your local school systems. This is something that we've had success with in Kentucky. We signed back in November. We signed our very first letter of intent of a high school youth apprentice to become a registered apprentice once he graduates. He is taking, and we did it big. We had it like a college signing day, and invited his family, invited his teachers, invited the utility that he's working at. So that's actually been, that was made possible through our Kentucky Department of Education. They have a youth apprenticeship model that allows students in career pathways to co-op at a utility, and it gives them a clear path into direct entry of our Registered Apprenticeship Program. So that gives us an opportunity to go in and tell students, and even, you know, try to have a more targeted recruitment, FFA programs, in career and technical education. You know, we have some really impressive skill sets that are coming out, you know, that high school graduates are leaving school with through their area technology centers, things like welding, industrial maintenance, electrical technology. So it's really, that's an untapped resource that, it could be right there just through your local school system. And you don't need to hire 20 people. You just need to find one or two that's looking for a good job opportunity close to home. And, you just got to tell them about it, because, they're like your general population of customers. They don't know about you. They don't know what you do. They don't know what kind of skill sets you're looking for. So tell your story. That's something we got to get better at in this industry anyway. Get out and tell your story and tell more people about you, and invite them to come and take a tour of your operations. I like to tell people our very first apprentice was he was right out of high school, and he went to work at a wastewater plant. And, the reason that was successful and that young man took a job at the sewer plant wasn't just because somebody said, hey, you want to come work at a wastewater plant. It wasn't because he saw an ad in his local newspaper, because he probably doesn't read it anyway, right? It's because the utility manager was proactive, knew this young man in the community, approached him and said, hey, come take a tour of our operations. And that young man, he was really enticed by the fact that he was going to get to operate heavy equipment. he told people, I can't find anybody that's willing to pay me to drive a tractor all day, every day. But I learned about this job opportunity. I can still farm on the side. I can, I've got a chance to grow in this job. So get out there and be proactive.
Thank you so much. That was a great response. We do have some more questions here before we wrap up today. So we had one asking about, can you talk a little bit about how or to what extent this program was able to address the problem of wages, particularly the wages not always be competitive with other starting salaries?
So speaking for us as the apprenticeship sponsor, one thing it's allowed us to do is to have those hard conversations with utilities to say, hey, the minimum requirement for an entry-level apprentice, they need to be at least making $10 an hour. There are utilities in our state that do not pay that. And I'm happy to say that most of our participating utilities do pay above and beyond that. But that's kind of a segue to say, listen, if you're not willing to pay, and this is a conversation with decision makers, it could be the city councils or your district boards, or to say, hey, are you taking a look at your wage trends in your local area and in your region? Because you're not just competing with other utilities, you're competing with every other industry out there that are begging for good people. So if there's, if you're not able to find anybody, let's first take a look at, what you're willing to pay in this important professional position. If they're not able to make, more than what somebody at the local Dairy Queen are making, with a whole lot more responsibilities, then maybe we need to take a look at that a little harder.
Great, thank you. And looks like our last question for today, unless any more come in. How did you find people to take these apprenticeships? And was there any common theme among those that did start them?
I'll start with that. Heather, you may want to chime in, but actually the utilities were able to help with that. We didn't reach out to any specific person. We just reached out to the utilities. They posted positions. We put that on the Kentucky Career Center website. We advertised that as much as we could to help them get the word out there. And to be honest, I think in a number of those, it was word of mouth, because when you're talking about those small rural communities, a lot of times that's the greatest advertisement.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that, Paula. And I think that, again, it goes back to meeting them where they are. So just advertising in your local newspaper. You want to have a multifaceted approach to recruitment and getting the word out there. So there was a lot. We shared a lot of posts on social media, because that's where a lot of people are. But then the word of mouth is the most powerful. But I would say one of the recurring themes or recurring trends that I see, again, just this isn't necessarily specific to the GRADD region, but all over the state of Kentucky, is an agricultural background. Especially if you're working with someone in distribution collection systems, that they could go and work at a manufacturer, and they're going to be doing the same thing day in and day out, and that's going to drive them crazy. They like the the chance to have their work day look a little different every day keeps things interesting. So that is definitely one recurring theme that I've seen, someone maybe with an agricultural background, or again, just the career and technical education pathway interests.
And I'll second, from just as an employer side, there's a couple pieces that'll hit. Again, because we're cities or water district and whatnot, we're not paying millions of dollars, seem to have a little bit better success with folks that are a little bit older, not necessarily your 18, 20-year-olds coming out. And that's not always true. But when you got someone that's 18, 19, 20, and myself included, I put that in there, when you're that age, all of a sudden you're seeing that, hey, I can work over at X, Y, and Z zippers and make $3 more an hour. A lot of them folks that are that age are looking at that and they'll jump because it's $3. Once you've been married for a little while, or you got kids or a little bit more age on you, start realizing like, I'd like to retire someday. Folks that are realizing that, hey, you might not be making, you're not going to be a millionaire here at a water district, but I've got good insurance, or we're working towards a state pension, things like that. It seems like folks that, have a little bit of age to them or a little bit more maturity, all of a sudden realize that, okay, I get that part and that piece helps out. But I'll definitely second the folks that have been in the mechanics field or farm fields. Those folks we end up having a lot better success with too, because one of my things I love to tell people is one phone call changes my whole day. Just because we're doing this, I'm not gonna lie, if we had a busted water main, and one of my ladies in the office grabbed me and said, hey, we just had a 6-inch main blowout, I'm not gonna lie, I would have had to jump off here and go help out, because at any one point in time, we're making sure that our customers are in water at all times to the best of our ability. So that's all I've got.
We are right at we're right at our end time, so that was the perfect amount of time. So thank you all. Thank you, Brett, Pete, Paula, and Joanna, and Heather for joining us today. Following this webinar, all attendees will receive a follow-up email with the slides and a link to the recording. You also see an evaluation pop up, so we ask that you let us know your thoughts on today's session, as this helps us plan future webinars that are on topics important to you. So thank you all again. And do you all have any final remarks for our audience today before we close?
I just say good luck.
Of course. And if there are any questions after the fact, feel free to contact me and I'll get you in touch with the right folks, or Brett's contact information was also included in the slide deck. So thank you, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.